So I had this wonderful opportunity to have this show at the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art. And you know how it is. You're on the ferry, you get off the ferry, and there's the museum right there. And so then you have the front window. And so we put the two big trees and some globes right in the front window so you could see them right off. So in general, my work looks pretty lighthearted, decorative, and detailed, but that's just on the surface. Once you get in there, there's always a hidden backstory. Because I make art out of what makes me laugh, but I also make art out of what worries me and what annoys me. It's fun, but it's serious fun. For instance, life is really too loud. See? And here, I used to play the piano. So I still like piano music quite a lot. Now, it's when you work in tin, it's really hard to find enough yellow tin. So in the middle of the pandemic, Jenny Filius brought me this big yellow tin steamer trunk. And it was in the pandemic, so she just dropped it off for me and left, which was really a nice thing for her to do. So otherwise, I could never have had yellow so much. Because you cannot find enough yellow cookie tins. The soundscape is a commons, right? And I think it would be better if we could have agreements about that. I turn things into dragons because dragons don't have motors. Now, you notice people are always saying, no worries, right? And, I think we can agree that there's cause to worry. There is cause to worry, and I've never really been able to figure this out, but it's our job in this life to carry the no worries portion of our life and the worries both at once. And here's the dragon dropping toys, not bombs, onto the bomb site below, which is this archipelago. Here's another island. I make a lot of islands. This, you see the little housing, the little village is teacups. Here's the pink island. Pink, I think, is a hilarious color. This is the cloud island, and you notice it's upside down. The reflection is upside down underneath it. They also included some of the bronze work I used to cast bronze at Pratt in Seattle, kind of like 20 years ago. So it's really, which is really, if you've ever cast bronze, it's a huge thrill. But it's this really medieval kind of process. Manufacturing. So really, I don't go to movies. All I really like to do is I like art and I like hiking. And I like landscapes. So I like to go to the deserts in the Southwest. This is like a slot canyon. Now, another thing I worry about a lot is fire. So this is the island beset by fire. And there's a whole backstory around that you'll hear in my talk. I also worry about birds. This is called "A Bird in the Hand is Worth 1,000 Words." And those text strips, I'm really into these text strips. Nobody would ever read them, but okay. So this part, I make art about everything that goes on in my life. And this series is about breasts, also known as peaches, also ex-peaches. You'll hear more about that. Now, you remember the musical chairs game where the kids all have to fight for a chair, only the little ones are at a disadvantage because they're not as fast. So I made a series called Musical Chairs with Enough Chairs. Better, huh? So including extra chairs. This is one of the extra chairs. And this whole thing morphed into stuff about social justice, as in enough food, enough medical care, enough money, enough shelter, enough cake. And this is one of the carousels with enough chairs. I set them all up on turntables and made the music stop regularly, when I set it up as an installation. Now take a look at the job the guy did with the lights. I love to see the shadow on the wall of that shut up helicopter.
We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is within the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people of the clear salt water, Suquamish people. Expert fishers, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Here's Kathy. Thanks, Paul. Now, do you know why artists are the easiest people in the whole world to talk to? Because all you have to do is say to them, "What are you working on?" And that's like all they need. Which is virtually what BIMA did, inviting me to show at the museum and to do this art talk. Do you know that they sent a big truck to pick up my artwork? And they have a crew of people to like carry it in, install it all, promote it, and light it. So thanks so much to all the people at BIMA, Greg and the staff and the volunteers. It's so touching to feel seen, heard. So who's got a card that says 11 on it? Hold up your hand and hand her the mic. Stand up. Open it up, read it.
Hasn't anybody ever told you less is more?
Well, sometimes people try to tell me that less is more, and maybe it is. But after you walk through the exhibit, I think you will agree that I will probably never be one of those less is more types. Now, my arty great nephew James says, you should always be asking, what could this piece do without? What could I take away? Probably really insightful. But I'm always saying, gee, what else could I put on this piece? I might be the polar opposite of less is more. But I'm actually a minimalist in lots of ways. Like, you get to my house and say, sure. What a total wreck. But it's all studio, really. Then you would spend a little time there and realize that, yes, there is a couch, but no place else to sit. I don't have very many dishes or towels. My clothes are mostly covered with plaster and have holes burned in them. And I don't need a dining room, I need a studio. And I sleep outside. Whoops. Excuse me. I sleep outside. Why waste perfectly good studio space on a bedroom? So the functional part of my life is minimalist. The art part is all chaos, and I don't like to mix those two things up, which is why I don't like to make functional art. It's all about chaos management. Plus, I think there's plenty of functional stuff in the world already. And I like making something that looks functional, but isn't after all. Art is like my whole life. It's all I ever do. Call it art, call it whatever you want. I mean, creative process. It's my skin. It's my clothes. It's the answer to every question, every doubt. For instance, having a bad day? The world is horrified? Make art about it. See, I'm sort of a hoarder and sort of a minimalist. I'm also introverted and extroverted. I love solitude, but I'm not hyper private. I love detail, but I'm not meticulous. I love trees. I hate helicopters. I insist on freedom, and I insist on social responsibility. I break rules, but I honor agreements. I love being alive, and I'm looking forward to being dead. This is not the world I want to be alive in, and this is exactly the world I want to be alive in. Who's got the card that says 12 on it? So stand up and let's hear it.
Okay. I heard you describe your work as over the top and under the surface. What do you mean by that?
Now, Terry knows exactly what I mean by that. because she's the director of Fogue Studios and Gallery in Georgetown, where I had a show by this very title last year. I'll humor her though. Now, as you know, Carrie, on, on the surface, my art looks pretty detailed, even decorative, even cute sometimes, the essence of over the top. So that's on the outside. And that's far enough in for a lot of people. And really, I do make some art that dead ends right below the surface. But my favorite work doesn't really stop there. Usually there's a lot of hidden detail, secret compartments, backstory. Then I might lose people at the blood and guts level way in there. Anyway, unless you're paying attention, you might not notice the undercurrents, though hidden in plain sight, swimming through a sea of detail. It's now card number 33.
Right, stand up. Where do your art ideas come from?
Oh, insightful question. Thank you. So that's introspection. That's looking around, noticing stuff, combining stuff. It gets to be a habit. Like I'm always fishing, and the hook is always baited. For instance, at the Nifty Thrifty in Shelton, one of the employees handed me a vintage toaster. She said, "I bet you could use this." I thought, well, I knew I could. But it wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I suddenly thought, toast and jam. See, that says, "Is the world toast?" This is in Cynthia Sears' book art collection, by the way. See the fire and flood, right? This fossil fuel jam. The ideas come from other ideas, weaving together different strands of ideas. For instance, in a church in Oaxaca, Mexico, I saw this amazing relief sculpture of a tree, all the branches ending in the torsos of saints. So I love that morphing of people and trees. I'd like to morph into a tree myself, which I guess is where I got the idea to put reading people on the branches of my tree. Oh, who's got number 45?
How is it constructed?
Aha, interesting question. I stiffen cloth with plaster, drape it over the armature, which is the structure. Huge mess, plaster, oh my God. Then paper mache it all with maps, then glue beads or whatever. And the trunk is really in 4 pieces. You can see me putting it together at CVG a couple of years ago. All the torsos are separate pieces too. I'm not an engineering wizard, but I'm innovative and I know enough not to make something so big that I can't get it out the studio door, which I learned the hard way. And by the way, notice they're all reading books. The book pages are from a cut-up tree identification book. So who's got 67? Ah. So how long did it take? 75 years. Actually, this is the most common question I ever get. I'm not sure painters get this question. Odd, isn't it? Anyway, this piece might have taken a couple of months, but what does the question really mean? Do you count design time, the time scrounging around for materials, the time put into making mistakes, the time waiting for glue to dry, the time put into marketing or exhibiting? This tree is part of a series I call No One is an Island, which no one is, by the way. Includes the trees, globes, clouds, and islands. The undercurrent behind this is that tension between wanting to feel separate from the world and also wanting to feel connected. This is from a show at Green River Community College in Auburn that featured the No One is an Island series. And this is from my artist statement. Sometimes I wonder if the world is surprised at where human evolution has led. Who would have thought that something as beautiful and brilliant as human beings could turn against the very ingredients of our own existence? Each of us has borrowed a set of molecules from the universe's available supply, and we will need to give it all back one of these days, like returning a book to the library. So how do we manage to see ourselves as not part of the world? We are made out of exactly the same stuff. We're not really all that different from trees. I would have loved this tree when I was a kid. Sometimes I think what I make is basically toys. Like I'm trying to please a 6-year-old part of myself. And believe me, I have a huge following among the 6-year-olds. Now things go around, there are lights and tunnels and music boxes. There's a fisheye lens for an iPad in there. And so when I was first making this, I was having a hard time like sketching it out on a flat piece of paper because I wanted it to be 3-dimensional. So finally I closed my eyes and I just sketched in the air kind of like this. And then when I saw it, I could still see it. So I think you should try this air sketching sometime. It really works. So who has number 88? Aha.
What is this tree made out of?
I'm glad you asked that. I cut up cookie tins, lunchbox tins. Sometimes I use roof flashing. It's a copper foiling process like they use on stained glass. And then I solder it all together. Ah. So, yeah, there's a soldering thing. It's like a 2-dimensional, I mean, the box comes with 3-dimensional form. So I take it apart and turn it back into 2 dimensions. So that then I can turn it back into 3 dimensions again. This is why I burn myself, I cut myself all the time. Satisfying the way the solder flows. This is an important part of what it's in. Really important. So that's not number 91. Ah, can you bring a microphone? Wait for the microphone.
Where do you get all this stuff?
Ah, funny you should ask that. Marnie just told me that she actually brought some with her to this thing. So could you bring those up here, please? Let's see what you've got. I mean, I've only got like 5 million tins, but you know, I'm always curious what else is out there. That's mine. Okay. I have yeah. Oh. Like these. Yeah, I really like. I like the teapot. The teapot is really good. I think, and the color is good. Thanks, Marty. So, you know, I'll give me some, and I get them from thrift stores and sometimes eBay, and also some of the horrible war ones online from Temu. If you notice Temu.com lately. Whoa. Anyway, a lot of those are really horrible, but and they're anyway. And the white for the clouds is roof flashing from when the Shelton hardware store redid their roof. So, who's got number 13? Wait for the microphone.
I've got it.
Oh, you got it? Well, that's it.
What is the backstory behind the dragon?
Now you might notice the propellers on this dragon. That's because it's partly an airplane, a combination of a dragon and a bomber, which drops not bombs, but toys and books and food on the bomb site, which is the archipelago below, which you probably saw in there. See, a more humane kind of bomb to drop, don't you think? It would work out better all around. It's even a compromise because it gives a little something to the guys who are just dying to bomb something. Because obviously it could have been cluster bombs. It would make you just as tough, but also as if you somehow had a heart. And you wouldn't end up pissing off the broken-hearted people whose children just got blown up. I don't see why nobody ever thinks of this. So who's got number 44?
It's the story about the globes.
Ah, the globes. Thank you for asking me that. I was just about to get to it. So, somebody gave me a globe once for a birthday when I was a kid. I loved it. I used to set my globe and my doll Jimmy on the chair by the window and to take with me in case of fire. I was very scared of fire when I was a kid. I still am, really. The farmhouse where I grew up caught fire several times. The back steps, a hot plate in the bedroom, a towel over the heater in the bathroom, the entire kitchen. Then later, a house fire in 2006, a forest fire in 2014. Sometimes it feels like it's the whole world. I've made globes for as long as I've made art. There are earlier soft sculpture ones, but this is from 35 years ago. The floor underneath was covered with the same stuff that embellished the globes, as if it had all been blasted out when the worlds fell apart. If you were to take a globe and cut out the oceans, you'd be left with a handful of continents. But the oceans are still attached to each other, so I cut out the continents instead. Which might make you kind of wonder, like when I was a kid, everybody said the world is round. Okay, I thought, okay, round. But I thought it was round like a plate, not round like an orange. But then, what is on the inside? Is it all like a big ball of water and the continents are like boats floating and teetering around on the surface? And wouldn't that mean if you waded out too far from shore, you would fall over a drop off and maybe get sucked in under the land? But actually, the world is pretty much solid inside. The oceans are like a big interconnected puddle sloshing around on the surface of whatever the inside middle is made of. Picasso was known to say, I put into my pictures everything I love. I would add to that, I put into my art everything I fear, like fire, like war. They're negotiating world peace in there. There are two gun-headed baby dolls and two dove-headed baby dolls sitting around a table. The crystal ball in the middle is a clear marble lit up from underneath. But sometimes there isn't really a backstory. It's just plain unserious fun. Oh, has somebody got number 56?
What are the chairs all about?
Ah, the chairs. Uh-huh. Well, this is a series called Musical Chairs with Enough Chairs. The book and the video this fall are from an installation I put up in Anacortes a couple of years ago. The traditional version of musical chairs, the music pauses and 10 littles scramble for a place to sit, but only 9 chairs. So one of the smalls is left standing. The bigs then remove another chair. The music starts up and the 9 smalls mill around nervously. Then the music stops and another is unable to find a seat. This continues until the most agile and aggressive among them claims the last chair and wins. The littles won't be putting up with this indefinitely. Sooner or later they will ask, who made up this story? Why aren't there enough chairs? Eventually, because this is how the game is played, won't be a good enough answer anymore. In my version of musical chairs, there are enough for everybody, extra chairs even, for the smallest, slowest, most mild-mannered of us. The question is, if there really are not enough chairs to go around, how do we want to deal with this? By forcing the smallest to fight each other for a seat at the table? Notice the bigs seem to have enough chairs. But do we like to live in a world in which the littles don't? So I set the turntables and the ragtime music on a timer so that there are short pauses regularly. Just as in the game of musical chairs, only not so mean. And this is about social justice in general. Not just enough chairs, but enough food, enough shelter, enough health care, enough cake. That's an extra chair with bunnies. There's an extra chair with enough pie. And also enough cake and enough hats. I started making hats just to be silly and make myself laugh. And then I thought of how it works into the musical chairs series, as in enough hats. So I like to hook together different projects. Oh, who has that card that says hat on it? Somebody back there. Could you stand up and could you give her the mic?
Can you wear all the hats?
Well, only sort of. The hats and hairdos are designed to be worn, but only for long enough for you to take a selfie. They're really heavy and uncomfortable. The models are happy to put them on, and a few minutes later, even happier to take them off. Now, notice I worked in a globe. I always do. Plus, I've always liked those pink flamingos. I never pass by one in a thrift store, but I would not take them from people's lawns. I made some hairdos too. On the right, that used to be a kid's ruffled skirt. I really love ruffles, so I wouldn't be caught dead wearing them. Then, okay, I made a hat for two people. Could I have a couple of volunteers, please? Oh, okay, please come down here. And would you please be assist? So, yes. Now, this is a hat for two people. Okay, see, that's about as long as they could take. So, as I said, all this started out as just mindless fun. But of course, I make art about everything I'm going through. I incorporate all my worries and complaints and dramas. So when I was thinking about having top surgery, I started making art about it. Now, here's where you might want to plug your ears. Hold up the earmuffs, please. If you don't want to hear me talking about breasts. And if you would like, if you want Anne or Jenna to give you earplugs, please hold your hand up and deliver those to whoever doesn't want to hear. Okay, last chance. Okay. So, in the midst of all the drama of deciding, consulting, finding a surgeon, and the first one thought I was too old. This was like a couple of years ago. And this wasn't because I wanted to be a man. I mean, lots of men don't even want to be men, right? I just never wanted to have breasts. So, I was terrified and gleeful. I looked at myself in the mirror and just cackled like a witch for what I was getting away with. Then I was telling all my friends and family, kind of like coming out all over again. I kept a big journal and all the email conversations. And since I was already making costumery with the hats and hairdos, I made some breast costumes. I use the term peaches because an Argentinian friend used to. And the word breasts is weirdly loaded, almost embarrassing, almost hard to pronounce. No wonder people call them boobs. And peaches get a lot of attention in this culture. We all have our feelings about it. Some of us have had them taken away by cancer. Truly terrifying. Some of us have always felt like, how can I get these things off of me? And some of us never had them to begin with, which doesn't mean they couldn't get some if they wanted to. Some of us want more, bigger. It sort of looks like I'm trying to be funny, and I am. But I'm also serious about the disrespect and abuse breasts get in this culture. Know how breasts are called bazookas? Disrespectful, right? Notice the ones on the right are beaded guns. On the left, the text strips hanging down there are full of insulting or descriptive terms for peaches. Whether or not top surgery is part of a gender affirming process, it calls up gender and trans issues. And when you start talking about peaches in this culture, you are inviting in all those undercurrents of love, hate, obsession, rage, fear, ridicule, shame. Some of us want peaches so much. Some of us want them so little. Who's got the label, the card that says personal? Wait for the mic. Stand up, please.
Why are you exhibiting something so personal?
Yeah. Art is personal. It's all blood and guts underneath. I'm making the Peach series because I make art about all my dramas, and because I'm curious. How are people going to see purposeful top surgery? Maybe a huge insult to the breast cancer survivors, or even to people who really like their breasts. Or an insult to the trans community because I got on the currently quasi-available trans train but got off at the first stop. Will the Buddhists think I should just have accepted my ongoing peach dysphoria? Or will feminists think I didn't fight hard enough for peach respect, or that I am disrespecting women as mothers? And by the way, I'd love for you to read the book, but it is kind of a hard read, very personal, and also look out for bloody surgery photos. I don't think I was really supposed to be able to get at those. So remember how I like to tie things together? So I was working on the Pink Island, which is part of the No One is an Island series. And it occurred to me to cut out peach shapes in the little dressed up houses. Well, I did think about it because that was going to make it unsaleable. But it connected my two series. And anytime you portray torsos, you're making a choice about how to portray breasts, right? And by the way, I made this way before the Barbie movie, but I have a bad feeling that Barbie might have poisoned it. This is the Peach March for Peace and Justice, brought to you by the Peach Liberation Front. And notice the marchers are all vaguely breast shapes, and notice all the protest signs? Plus there's leaflets all over the ground. I purposely worked in tin and beads and maps and found objects just to see if I could do it all. More is more, right? Then I made some costumes that include everything but the peaches. You were meant to stand behind it and have your picture taken with your face showing through, also your peaches or ex-peaches or lack of peaches showing through too. In the early stages, I really liked the drape of the fabric on this one. It had a nice shape that I liked too. So I did two versions. First, I used the form, the thing that I built first, as a temporary armature to build a tin one on, which was really difficult at this scale. Then I built a new wood and pipe structure to put the tin one on, which freed up the original form, which I then mapified and beaded. Oh, and by the way, now you can unplug your ears, okay? Anybody that was. And then, since I seem to be into making unwearable costumery, I applied that to the Shut Up series too. This is a Shut Up outfit. You can't sit in it. You can't wear it, but you can stand behind it and have your picture taken. It's also an extra chair for the musical chairs series too, as in Enough Quiet. Oh yes. Yes, Anne, could I please have a volunteer? That would be you, Anne. This is the Shut Up outfit. Could we have a little light on Anne for this? And would you stand up on the stage so that you can really get the idea? Don't trip over that, please. Okay. Okay. And who has the thing that says uh-oh? Okay. Okay, do it really loud. Yeah. Well, nobody seems to know this, but the soundscape is a commons, like air, like water. You can't just dump mercury into the river. So can't we have some agreements about noise pollution too? Just once in a while, couldn't we have a day off helicopters, leaf blowers, trucks, dirt bikes, lawnmowers, planes, and target practice? Sign off on all this noise. I'm going to write shut up on my roof in huge letters. I like to get up before dawn so I can sit in my thinking spot in the woods for a couple of hours while the planes and helicopters are still at home in their pajamas, eating their Cheerios and drinking coffee to rev themselves up for the day's noisy infringements. Now, who's got a car that says quiet?
Couldn't you just say, please be quiet? Don't you think shut up is kind of rude?
Well, noise is rude too, right? Oh, but it's even ruder than you think. Now, plug your ears again for a minute if you don't want to hear what is commonly thought of as a swear word. All right? Some of the text says shut the fuck up on it. But I made little asterisk pieces so I could cover up the fuck in case I want to show this in a place where people are more tenderhearted than this group is. Weirdly, I've started really liking these loud toys. The trucks and helicopters and vintage motorcycles. My tin friend Jenny gave me a couple, and now I'm always scrolling through eBay for those so I can turn them into dragons. And by the way, the Shut Up series is traveling to Corvallis, Oregon sometime next year. See, the problem with trucks and planes and motorbikes is the motor, right? They need an alternate way of getting around. This truck is morphing into a dragon. See, no motor, hence quiet. And no gas, so they don't contribute to climate change. I like dragons anyway. Maybe it's because of my distant hippie past. This is one of my favorite dragon pieces. See, it's one of the islands from No One is an Island. I'm sorry, the photograph doesn't get there, but so there's a village on top and a dragon upside down under it. The story is you might wade out too far into the water and fall off the edge. But under the island lives something friendly, like a guardian, that will catch you and put you back up on top. This is what is meant by a social safety net. I have a card that says more. Could you wait for the microphone?
Is this all you make? Don't you make anything else?
Now, haven't you ever thought eating is a sculptural process? That's why it's hard to give somebody a bite of your apple. They might mess up your design. I like monoprinting too. I have a friend in Oregon who donates her paintings to a food bank. So I sent her monoprints to give away too. Now, she was worried for a minute that people wouldn't be able to afford to frame them. But I told her, well, framing is a racket invented to make it harder for both artists and art buyers. So we started the TLF, that's the Thumbtack Liberation Front. And I like lino cuts because while it's a 2D result, it's a 3D process and it's portable. Like when I get on a plane, I put all the little carving blades in different pockets. Then I reassemble it when I get into the air and start carving. Then the flight attendants come by and they say, how did you get that thing on this airplane? Which I know would get me into a lot more trouble if I weren't a harmless looking little old white lady. I really like doing backwards writing. In fact, I like the whole process so much I once spent 6 months making as big a lino cut as I could. Some drawing too, now and then. For instance, this picture on the right, my dentist says she works on her own teeth. So So I drew this picture for her. Now, I have a few dramas about my teeth, don't we all? Where I live, it's morning again. I wake up because the phone is ringing. It's a wrong number. I check the weather. I look at the headlines. I organize the day's potential visitors. I bat some vitamins down my throat. I drink a glass of water. I play some solitaire. I watch birds a lot. I wish I could fly. Sometimes I dream I can fly like a dragon. I would like to fly away. I'm scared of my teeth. I don't think they like me very much. Sometimes they bite me. I would rather live in a house that liked me better. There are quite a lot of things I would like to do. I bet I could paddle a kayak. I bet I could ride a bike. I've always wanted to dance. I don't think I ever will. One day I found my teeth crying. Why? Where are you going? I thought they hated me. Turns out they just keep biting me. Maybe I'm too careless. Accidents are bound to happen. I could wear a hard hat when crunchy stuff wants to visit. I could do more yoga to stay agile. It can be cozy in here when it's snowing out. The view can actually be pretty nice from here. I call up and order tickets to the ballet. I sing a lullaby. I brush my teeth. I turned it into a book too. More books here, including acres of lino cuts and drawings. I write a lot too. Now, the thing with the clothing labels started because they are so itchy. I'm always ripping them out of my t-shirts. And really, that turns them into a found object with a bit of a kick. I suddenly thought of that one. I thought, wait a minute. So, who has a thing that says scissors? Kathy, where do you get the labels? Aha. Well, funny you should ask that. There are some pre-addressed envelopes for you to send me your labels on the table right outside the door. You don't want those labels anyway. They are too itchy, as we all know. But see, the medium isn't exactly all that important. And the idea or image that opened the door for me last week doesn't do it for me this week. The way in has to be invented and reinvented all the time, because it's the creative process itself that opens the door, not the thing created or the words spoken. It's got a page that says money.
How have you been making a living all these years?
Well, of course, all this time I have been making all kinds of art, some of which you might call commercially viable, that is, saleable. I've managed to be self-supporting Self-employed since 1978, always by making something you could loosely call art. I did soft sculpture for years. Gratitude brought this to the top. I made it 40 years ago. It was part of my bread and butter thing. So some of it became my bread and butter work while I was making ceramic and bronze in the other part of my life. I used to send a couple of hundred empty sewing needles to my mom in Toronto every week, and she would send them back threaded. Isn't that great? I figure she threaded 70,000 needles for me. In retrospect, some kind of miracle that I never had to have an actual job. I've exhibited and sold art in galleries, trade shows, museums, shops, the Pike Street Market, art festivals, retail, wholesale, online, offline. I've always run a one-person operation. As much as I didn't want to be an employee, I also didn't want to be an employer. So the tin took over where the bronze left off around 2006. Not any less time consuming, but nice to be able to work in my own studio. I've always worked in multiple mediums, or is that media? And pursued multiple marketing or exhibit venues. So at one time, I was making dolls and selling them wholesale, making mapified sculpture for art festivals, and selling bronze in galleries. Who has a note that says kind of?
You get kind of old for all this.
That's what my 5-year-old neighbor said to me once. She said, "You're really good, but you're a really good artist." But I am getting Social Security now, which I think of as my monthly art grant. I can make what I want, saleable or not. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not done yet, as Lisa Edge said in Real Change, reviewing the old Dyke show at Coca. Now, the last couple of years, I've been doing a monthly email newsletter. You can sign up on my website if you were so inclined. As much as I drag my feet about updating my website, I love doing the newsletter. Not sure why, because what's the difference? Oh, now, who's got a page that says fairs?
The art festivals were fun, though, weren't they?
Yeah, wouldn't you think so? Yeah. The last art festival I did was in La Quinta, near Palm Springs in March of 2020, just before everything shut down due to COVID. If it had been just a couple of days later, the whole thing would have been canceled. First of all, there was so much snow, I barely managed to get on my driveway. Then I went over the coast route to avoid a 100-mile backup through Eugene. I drove way up and around a huge mudslide near Banning. Then Sonoma was underwater. But on a nice day, you think, gee, this life sure works. In general, I get a lot of positive input. The people who can't relate just walk quietly past. Do you know what people say to me all the time in these exact words? I don't have a creative bone in my body. This culture does such a huge disservice making people think that. It is criminal. Now, the people at the art fairs talk to me about their problems, the badly behaved neighbor, the recently deceased parent, the annoying brother-in-law, the imperfect significant other. So besides the art therapy and business coaching, I do a lot of couples counseling, little grief counseling. Sometimes there's time for a collaborative drawing with the fan base. But sometimes you wonder, who ever thought of doing outdoor art festivals? This looks a lot like the Salmon Days Fair I did in Issaquah one October. It doesn't rain much in La Quinta. Usually looks about like this, but they can get some ghastly winds that break glass and knock down booths and shut down the fair. Now, on the plus side, as far as making a living goes, there's quite a bit of scope for invention in a retail business, like art festivals, as long as they don't go too crazy. There are things that people at art festivals can't stand. Dragons, yes. Snakes, no. Blue, yes. Green, no. 3 arms, maybe. 3 heads, no. Do not mess with the head. Plus, no blood and guts, no political commentary, which is strange because TV. I write in the living room, murder, mayhem, and the news itself. Now, surprisingly, Ad Nauseam was kind of a hit in a small way. People are sometimes baffled by my interest in skeletons. Now, the thing is, death and scary stuff exists in the world, whether or not we think we can tolerate it. It's no good pretending it's not there. In fact, it is our lifelong job to deal with the mix of the horrific and the beautiful that life presents. The writer Isaac Dennison said approximately, "You can endure anything if you can turn it into a story." And we do. We do it all the time. We play with the shadow side. What is a football game but pretend war? We invite CSI Miami and Law and Order right into our living rooms. This is obviously pretend murder. We are trying to take the horror out of horror, trying to find some way to accept its apparently inevitable place in our lives. Now, wouldn't you think that the Stephen King fans would be a little more tolerant of maybe a nice little autopsy sculpture? I don't even think skeletons are horrible. I mean, what a contraption. And bones have this nice way of reminding us that we are all made of the same basic components. I wonder what they would have thought of the blood globe, which I call War Won't Bring Peace. Notice the cute little blood houses? I love that combination of creepy and cute. Or this. You could think of those as teardrops if you like it better that way, but it's really blood. I didn't take the war and peace storytellers to art festivals, though I did exhibit them in galleries during that bronze phase. The peace story is here at BIMA, you may have seen it. And by the way, I did my bronze casting at Pratt Fine Arts in Seattle, which is where I first met BIMA's chief curator, Greg Robinson, who was the director at Pratt in those days. Now, this is how the globe piece that's in there, the one that says Lost at Sea, this is how it started out. That's part of the process. So who's got the tag that says negative?
How do you keep negative thoughts or comments from poisoning your art process?
Did you hear that? Shall I repeat?
Okay.
How do you keep negative thoughts or comments from poisoning your process? Thank you for asking that because boy, is that important. Art talent, like true love, supposedly arrives intact, instantly recognizable, happily ever after. But real love is not instant, and art is not a talent. Both are a life choice. So don't be shocked when you read the fine print and realize this thing needs regular maintenance. You have to nurture it with your best and kindest attention. No self-respecting life choice will put up with insults and snotty remarks and stinginess and sarcasm. Give it lots of space. Take it on long walks. Bring it cups of tea and nice snacks. Give it the best spot in the house. Make it feel loved. Some artists claim to be striving for excellence, but I'm thinking, wow, that would be way too scary for me. Plus, how would you even recognize it once you got there? I do, of course, notice ongoing fluctuations in my confidence barometer. The belief, the doubt, the up talk, the down talk, all just noise. Since I seem to have a choice, I prefer to pay attention instead to the itty-bitty, teeny-weeny, nitty-gritty, stop and go, push and flow, yes and no, micro decisions of the art process. Would rather trust to the rhythm of the helter-skelter, hit and miss, work and mess, grimy, slimy, the more, the less. The chance fates of curiosity, luminosity, transformation, the upside down, the underneath, the over the top. Who has a note that says next? My favorite question. You remembered. Oh, more shut up. More globes. This is the Galaxy Island. More serious fun. And I'm pretty interested in a potential vomit series. Featuring heads spewing out beautiful swirls of beads, rhinestones, toys, or maybe map fighter made of tin. Themes of purging and regret, things coming in but going out the wrong way. What's the note that says surmise?
I do. Don't you think you should be concentrating on perfecting your skills in one medium?
No.
I'm not done. Don't you think that some people are born with creative talents, but most people aren't?
No.
Art museums and art history are dominated by class privileged white men. Don't you think this is because they make better art?
No.
Don't you think the sign of a real artist is consistent attention to one cohesive vision?
No. No.
Don't you want to make a significant contribution to art history?
No.
Well, then, what is art all about for you?
Here's what I think. Art is by its nature free and equal. Even if the culture pretends that only some people can make art and bases this theory on class, race, and gender bias. So no matter what ridiculous hoops you have to jump through to exhibit or sell your art, and when you peel back all the commercial transactions, you can just know that art at its center is a free zone where no rules apply. And how utterly rude to cram hierarchy and judgment and exclusion on top of this creative energy, which is some of the best, most healing, most rewarding energy in the universe. So if somebody is knocking at your front door with a sales pitch about promoting your brand, you can just slam the door in their face and go right out your back door into the limitless free wilderness of your imagination. And this is exactly what I'm trying to protect and promote and share.